It's the Auburn Observer Podcast. Game recap, tournament preview, all that good stuff. Another double dose here. Justin Ferguson, joined by my co-pilot per usual, Dan Peck. Hello, Dan.
Ahoy, Justin. Yeah, we got a loaded show for you today as we've got a lot to cover. We are back in the Wings 94.3 studio, Wings 94.3, your home for Auburn University football, men's basketball, baseball, Tiger Talk. Auburn High School football just had their season wrap up, but you caught all of that on Wings 94.3 as well, plus classic hits all day long. They're in commercial break right now, but some Elton John is coming up, some Billy Joel as well, so a lot of piano in the next segment on Wings 94.3. Also Def Leppard, lots of cool stuff all day long. We really appreciate that they let us use the studio.
Yeah, speaking of that, Auburn High's season coming to an end. Opelika going to the state title game. This is a team that I talked about on our last podcast, fought to just make it to the playoffs, and now they're playing for a state championship in 7A for the first time, which is a really, really cool thing for Opelika. They played a really good, clean game against Auburn and was able to win, one of the biggest high school games I've ever been a part of. At Duck Sanford on Friday night.
Opelika was the 4 in the region. Is that right? Were they the 4? Were they either
they
three?
Were
the
the
3
three.
Or the 4? Yeah.
They were the 3 in that. And so they knocked off the 2 out of Birmingham, which was Hewitt Trustful. They knocked out the 1 out of Mobile, which I believe was Baker, and then beat Auburn High, which was the 2 in their own region. So really, really, really cool moment there for Opelika. A great season for Auburn High School. It was a game that lived up to the billing, and so that was a ton of fun. We'll talk football. We'll talk basketball. As Dan said, we are in the Wings 94.3 studio. This is being recorded on Sunday. I'm heading to Vegas Sunday night. Dan's heading out later this week because Troy's also going to be out there at around the same time, same week that Auburn men's basketball are out there. So we're going to have some crossover out in Vegas.
Yeah, I got a Troy game at the arena Monday night, or else I'd be headed out to Vegas right now. So I'm leaving Tuesday morning. I will get to Vegas in time for Auburn, Michigan, and I'll be in the house for that one. I'm not going to be able to see Auburn, Oregon in person. And yeah, I think you're going to have us covered on Monday, and then I'll link up with you Tuesday before the game.
Yeah, 100%. So this will be a lot of fun. We got some football to take care of first before we switch into basketball, and this was a fun one for sure. Didn't think it was necessarily going to go this direction at the start, but in the end, Auburn 62, Mercer 17 at face value. Dan, no one's going to be blown away that Auburn beat an FCS team by 45. But there's context that needs to be added into it.
It's hard to really impress on SoCon Saturday.
Yeah.
If you're an SEC team, because it does have that caveat of, well, you're playing a team that you should probably dismantle, all things being equal, because you're an SEC team that's played a lot of football already, and they're a team from the FCS level. Even through that. Even looking at things through that framing, I think it was still pretty impressive what you saw from Auburn yesterday.
It was, and I think after the first quarter, and really definitely in the second half, I thought parts of the second quarter really, really worked well for Auburn, even on defense. This was a 3-phase win we had talked about Auburn needing to go get. Mercer's a good football team. They had won 9 straight. They were a team that SP Plus and Sagarin both had as clearly better than Ball State and even better than that South Alabama team Auburn only beat by 16 earlier this season. So for Auburn to go out and win the way they did, not the perfect game by any means. I think offense and defense both have things they're going to want to improve and didn't like to see out there. But for the most part, they got the job done and got a win. And I think my big thing here, Dan, is before we break into the nitty gritty of the game, in terms of vibes, if you're a team that's 4-6 with an interim coach and you've got to play Alabama, an Alabama team that's going to be fighting to get into the college football playoff next week in the Iron Bowl, you want to just maximize your vibes heading into it. Nothing you could have done against Mercer to significantly shift your view of the matchup between Auburn and Alabama. There might be some elements that may be different now, but it wasn't. You weren't gonna, nothing you were gonna do on Saturday was gonna win you the Iron Bowl. so to speak. But when you play a fairly clean game on both sides of the ball and special teams, which hadn't been guaranteed this season, and you just do what you're supposed to do, and then some, against a good FCS team, you will take that and run with it. If you're Auburn, you have good vibes heading into the Iron Bowl, which, I mean, first quarter of this game, it looked like Auburn was going to be in a real fight, and you figure, okay, what is this going to look like? What is it going to do for this team's mentality moving forward? Full credit to Auburn. They bounced back, and it wasn't perfect. There were issues, like I said, but after the first quarter, it's 48-3, but between Auburn and Mercer, and that's something that we have not seen Auburn do against pretty much anybody this season, even their paycheck games. Just go out there and completely take care of business.
Overcoming a slow start too, right? I mean, you're talking about. I know Auburn had some. So I mean, offensively, you had immediate fireworks, but it wasn't as though the defense completely overwhelmed Mercer from the moment the game started, right? Like you had you had to roll with some punches, you had to take some shots from Mercer, but eventually, I think the defense got them in the vice grip that you would expect the defense to have an FCS offense, and it was just a matter of figuring out what Mercer does well, making some adjustments, and then because of the yardage Mercer finishes with, like they're on pace for a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
After the first quarter, Auburn tightens up.
Yeah, the first two drives of this game, Mercer has 21 plays, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they were walking down the field on Auburn, converting a ton of third downs, doing it through the air, really attacking this Auburn secondary, and that was something that they had to bounce. Like, I'm not surprised that Auburn's secondary struggled early on against this Mercer team. Mercer's got a really good scheme. They're playing with a lot of confidence on the offensive. And just that's where Auburn struggled this season. This secondary, this pass defense from game one against Baylor to now has not been their strength. They've had some good moments. They've had some good games, at times, but it's still their big issue. At this point in the season, they are 13th in the SEC in pass defense and yards allowed per attempt. They're 96th in the country. Now, they've played some good passing attacks, but that has been their weakness. And so they had to really wake up and tighten up in that area, which is good that they did that, because if they would have gotten themselves in a shootout in this game, I think Auburn would have had enough offense, obviously, to win. Auburn would have got enough stops. But you're about to play Alabama, who's got a pretty good passing attack, one of the better ones in the SEC. And when Ty Simpson is on, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I know that hasn't always been the consistent case with him, but he's got weapons, and Bama's not a team that necessarily feels like they have to run the ball. They if they need to throw the ball a bunch of times to win, this team, this setup that they have with their quarterback, with their receivers, with their coaching staff, they're built to do that. So this is something that Auburn's going to really have to focus on.
And the more snaps you play your defense in a competitive game against Mercer, the greater the risk for something unexpected to happen.
Right.
Like the more your starters have to be out there or your main contributors have to be out there, the greater you run the risk. Right. So, I think there are benefits to, taking care of a game early and putting it out of reach. We talked about this when we recapped basketball against Jackson State. Like the benefit of being on schedule against a team that you probably need to blow out, because if you don't, everything gets tense as far as the outcome of the game, and you also have to use some guys that you're really counting on. You have to use your starters a little bit more than you wanted to, and for Auburn, I think that eventually getting to a point where you could start experimenting with Mercer was really important. Getting to the point where you could build some distance. I do think, kind of like the Jackson State game, like we're going a long time without breaking down the thing people will remember the most about yesterday.
We didn't go quite as deep.
We did not. Yeah, it didn't take us as long.
But let's get it going.
Without further ado,
our Observe Fours breaking down this game from Auburn and Mercer. Dan,
would you like the honors? Because I feel like
you set it up.
Well, and I do feel like I'm always taking the easy way out of pointing to the quarterback as one of the main 4 things we need to break down. In this case, it feels especially pertinent with Deuce Knight getting his first extended look on the field as a college football quarterback.
And it probably couldn't have gotten any better for him. 15 to 20 passing for 239 and 2 touchdowns. And then the big one, 9 carries for 162 yards and 4 touchdowns. At one point, he had 3 carries for 3 touchdowns. His runs in this game, you add them up, 75 on the first play, obviously, 51. He had a 15-yarder on a 3rd and 8, had a 20-yarder for a touchdown later in the game. Like, he was as advertised as a dual threat weapon. Look, Mercer's defense is not
maybe more advanced as a runner than folks were expecting to.
Yeah,
I think there was the thought that he's an excellent athlete, but more of a downfield passer than a guy who's going to break huge plays as a scrambler. And instead, you saw because the first 2 runs are both pass plays where things break down. Mm-hmm. And Deuce Knight says,
nobody's open, let's go get it.
And I'm going to, he's going to go create a little bit of space himself or try to create something on the ground and gets, and
just
then
runs by everybody.
Yeah, and then the band's playing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so that's something that, like, if anything was surprising, I think it was that maybe as a scrambler, as a runner, even with the acknowledgement that it was an FCS opponent, feels like he's got more to offer than maybe people realized in that part of his game.
Over 400 yards of total offense, 6 touchdowns. That 6 touchdowns ties an Auburn all-time record for most touchdowns in a game by any player.
At Stidham in the bowl game against Purdue, right, had 6, and then Cadillac Williams in the Mississippi State game, I believe, are your other 2 6-touchdown performances. As far as like a guy being responsible for 6 touchdowns, I believe those are the other 2.
Jared had 5.
The
other one is the other one's a Cam game.
Okay, I know Cadillac is the
Cam in Kentucky, I believe, is that one.
Okay, yeah, I know that's the 4 rushing touchdown Cam Newton game that year. For some reason, I thought Stidham was in the 6 touchdown club.
He had 5 in that game.
Okay, so it's and then Cadillac in 03 has a 6 touchdown game against State.
Really impressive stuff from Deuce. I mean, this was a running game, the best, most rushing yards by an Auburn quarterback in a game since Nick Marshall against Tennessee in 2013. I mean, he was knocking on the door of, at one point, where we were like, he might be able to go for the record for most rushing yards by a quarterback in a game for Auburn, most for a freshman. They didn't get him quite to that point because they didn't run him much in the second half, but if he'd have gotten to 2, that would have been the first 200 game in Auburn history if he'd have gotten to that point. But it was very close for him. Deuce just does an excellent, excellent job of getting into space and just like weaving his way through it. Like his runs were not like, you got to have speed, obviously. He's got really, really good speed. I thought his vision was what was really, really impressive with that. It's not, Cam did this obviously throughout, and there's been great scramblers that have done it as well, where it's like, okay, I'm going to turn and burn past you, or I'm going to run through you. This one was, I'm going to run around you because you can't get me. It's that speed and that awareness he was able to get. And look, it's Mercer. It's Mercer. It's Mercer. You're going to hear me say that a million times on this podcast. But when I see a lefty running like that, Dan, stride-wise, the way the upper body and the lower body just looking like that, even just kind of also the way he throws the ball at times. When he committed to Auburn, when he flipped to Auburn, Jason Caldwell at Auburn 247, his style comp for him was Vince Young. That's what it looks like. Again, it's Mercer. I'm not saying he's going to be Vince Young. I'm not saying you should go ahead and call him an all-time legend.
You have to pass that test, though, right? Like, I mean, if you
just stylistically, when you just watch him play, with the way he was throwing the ball and especially the way he was running the ball, it looked like Texas Vince Young out there.
And we've seen some Auburn quarterbacks recently who were they're able to pass the test of destroying the overmatched opponent, and then when the competition gets a little tougher, the water gets choppier. For those guys, and who knows what happens when Deuce Knight sees a more athletic, more sophisticated defense than the one he saw yesterday. But the fact is, if he can't make it work against Mercer,
right,
then there's little hope that when the competition gets tougher, he's going to do better. If you're not hitting the single A and the double A pitching, then I don't know what's going to happen when you get to the show. You know, right? But we usually have a pretty decent idea of what's going to happen for those guys. And with Deuce, the fact that he was launching the ball off of single A and double A, yesterday, to sort of use that analogy, which suddenly makes it more interesting as to, well, geez, what's that going to look like when the competition level elevates a little bit?
And you don't know what that's going to look like, honestly, past the Iron Bowl. That's all you've got guaranteed left, and obviously a coaching change and all that. We'll see with what the future holds for Deuce Knight. I just think, the thing with his yardage and his touchdowns, it can be like, it's Mercer. There have been plenty of Auburn quarterbacks who have not done this against teams like that. I'll say this. There are plenty of teams Auburn has faced in the last decade that are worse than Mercer, right? And they weren't putting up quite the home run derby that Deuce Knight was going on. I mean, it was very, very impressive to just be able to just go by everyone with the way he ran. That spin move he hits on that one shorter touchdown run that he had is as good of a like nice play run that you've seen from an Auburn quarterback in a while.
To me, the thing that stands out about that performance is, and not to pile on Hugh Freeze more than we've already.
I think that's fair.
Okay, because it just the thought that with your tenure slipping away, right? Like with this season, with the offense becoming an existential problem, where it's like, this is so bad that you may lose your job after the next game if things don't get better.
Never even came close to going to him.
The thought that you had Deuce in the garage, and we said this after Kentucky.
Yeah.
The fact that if you were taking your lumps with a true freshman quarterback out there, I think that it would have been easier for Auburn fans to be more patient. It would have been easier for Auburn fans to show.
I said after the A&M game, coming off an off week before they go and play Georgia, it's like, why don't you at least entertain making that move?
Because I think that if Deuce Knight had been spending a big chunk of this season improving, or if Auburn had spent a lot of this year giving Deuce Knight reps and letting him develop on the field as a quarterback, I think that it would have been easy.
You could be having a Lagway situation with Billy Napier, and maybe it does. Obviously Florida goes with Lagway, and it gives Billy Napier one more year, and it doesn't work out ultimately. Lagway did not have that step forward, but it preserved that job. I had said it. I mean, I was saying it back in late September, early October. When do you pull the ripcord and as an act of self-preservation? And Hugh Freeze never seemed interested in doing that. Even though, here's the part that's crazy to me about this. Even though he moved heaven and earth to get this dude in and portrayed him as the future and is like, this is our guy. I need quarterbacks like this. I need talent like this. And you never went to it when it would have at least made sense. And I get it. I understand you go with a more experienced quarterback early in the season because your job's on the line. But at some point, that quarterback was not working. And Jackson Arnold got a good touchdown run yesterday. He had a couple drives where it didn't really work out for him, obviously. It wasn't working. It's fair to say that that's not working. And
sometimes in these situations, it can be like, hey, the offense is struggling. It's not necessarily the quarterback. So swapping from the experienced quarterback to the freshman might not solve the problem. It felt like we were citing the quarterback over and over again as one of the problems for the offense.
He's the lowest ranked qualified quarterback in the SEC now for back-to-back years.
And it just seems like if you had gone with Deuce, it would have felt like there would have been there's a direction. Even if you have to take your lumps and it's a roller coaster and it's up and down, you feel like you're going somewhere.
You can at least point to the fact that he kept going up and preaching that he needed patience and he wanted more time.
And the Jackson was close.
And yet never, but here's the thing, yet never made a move with the offense to indicate that there should be any more reason to give him that hope and that patience to have more time is just kind of baffling to me. And
you were spinning your wheels. as an
and
offense.
Look, Derrick Nix deserves a ton of credit for what he has done these last 2 games, because Derrick Nix has proven as the offensive coordinator, as the primary guy behind it. Because let's be real, when Hugh Freeze was here, he was the primary guy in this offense. But with Derrick Nix running the show on offense since the firing, he's done a really good job of just saying, here's what our guys are good at. Let's develop a plan to utilize them in the best way possible. He did that, obviously, with Ashton Daniels and the receivers specifically against Vandy a couple weeks ago. And in this game, it was like, what can Deuce do? Well, let's go do it with him. And look, there's a stretch in this game. He's 15 to 20 passing. He misses 4 straight. And the accuracy was not there for him. And then
he throws the fastball on the short stuff. You see that sometimes with guys that are getting their first taste of college football.
And what does Deuce Knight do after that? 13 of his last 14 completions. Throws one of the best throws you'll see this season from an Auburn quarterback on that Cam Coleman ball right before halftime. I mean, that's just and the DB there
a tight window. The
DB there for Mercer plays it perfectly, and it's just like, that's a 5-star thrown to a 5-star, and all due respect, you're a cornerback at Mercer. And it's just, that is the most like Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's play you'll probably ever see.
So we're going to do a preview of the Iron Bowl between now and next weekend.
Sure.
But I guess you gotta ask the question, like, how does the Mercer game in your mind change Auburn's preparation or Auburn's plan at quarterback going into the Iron Bowl?
I think they need to have Deuce ready and find some way for him to get on the field. Find some way for him to get on the field. Whether it's a package, whether it's certain sets, whether it's certain situations. If you want to say, look, Ashton Daniels could have done that against Mercer yesterday, but we sat him out because he was redshirt. And you know what? That's probably fair. I don't think Ashton breaks the same runs that Deuce does in that game, maybe, or maybe not. Like, I think he'd have had plenty of success, especially coming off of what he did against Vandy. But that was the situation where Deuce Knight is thrown in there because you weren't going to have Ashton Daniels play in this one, right? Now, the plan was to go back to Ashton Daniels, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do that again. But what I saw on Saturday, Dan, like, it's those are numbers and performances and plays that are good against anybody. And he is a different type of playmaker, and he's a different type of weapon. If you don't want to make him the starter, if you don't want to make him the primary guy against Alabama, and you want to go with an experienced guy like Ashton Daniels, I get it. But that dude right there deserves to get some opportunities, because I think he is a problem. And maybe it doesn't immediately translate. Maybe the jump up in competition from Mercer's defense to Alabama's defense doesn't, it affects him, and he's not as good. But I think you at least have to. What do you have to lose at this point, right? Because the fact of the matter is, with Deuce Knight, it could be it. Like, he could not be at Auburn anymore after this season. I don't know what he's thinking. There's obviously, you got to hire a coach. Got to hire offense coordinator, quarterbacks. You have to talk through all that, right? The staff that brought him in, the head coach that brought him in here is not here anymore. So we'll see what that means. But when you have this weapon for a limited amount of time, maybe you got to use it, because I don't think Auburn wants to be in a situation next week where they lose the Iron Bowl and Deuce Knight sits on the bench the whole game, because then it'll be a big, man, what if? And
if you're scoring every possession without him,
sure,
and it's 48-45.
But if you lose the Iron Bowl and it's not,
you feel like you needed to make more plays on offense,
you don't want to be in that spot. But for now, I mean, like, Dude was having fun out there and just playing. DJ Durkin said after the game, it was like he's playing backyard football, and it was. And look, I said it on the preview podcast. Deuce Knight is not the most polished quarterback in the world, and you saw it in some of the way it was his arm mechanics, with some of his accuracy issues and all that. But the dude was a 5-star for a reason. The dude was a 5-star without being that hyper precise, pocket passing quarterback. Out of high school, because dude's different. Dude's a different type of player. Dude's a different type of playmaker, and he got to show it in this game. And Auburn really, really got to have fun on Saturday because of it.
Yeah,
like he was the guy driving the train there.
He was making the moves, Justin. He was making the night moves there on the field his first time as Auburn's quarterback.
Super impressive. All right. Let's go with we'll probably do a combined.
Yeah, we can do 4 here.
Well,
we're lightning round.
Yeah,
well, and we've got a basketball game to preview.
And we got basketball as well. Yeah,
a couple of really interesting basketball games we'll preview a little bit later on the show.
All right. Let's go back to the defense, pass defense. This is something that is really concerning heading into the Iron Bowl for a number of reasons.
Does Alabama throw the football?
Yeah, they throw a decent bit.
Okay.
In case you hadn't. They don't really think they have to run the ball much either. Like, I know yesterday they played Eastern Illinois, and it was like, oh, so many different guys got in the game and ran the ball. And you look at the numbers, and you're like, yeah, I mean, that Eastern Illinois team was really bad.
It's the crazy stat, by the way, that they made the rounds before Bama and Eastern Illinois was that, like, if you add up all the yardage from Eastern Illinois quarterbacks in the NFL in the the 2000s, it's Romo and Garoppolo. So it's like nearly I think it's like 45,000 yards. If you were to add up all the Bama quarterbacks in the NFL, now I think you don't count Jalen Hurts here. It's like everyone else. It's like there's more passing yards from Eastern Illinois.
Wow.
In the NFL,
yeah.
In the last,
you got like Tua and Mac Jones
and Bryce.
I
mean, but still, like you're talking about, like, I mean, it's wild stuff that you're talking. That one school like Eastern Illinois has produced a couple of NFL quarterbacks who started a lot of games.
Yeah. This pass defense for Auburn, it's just there are real issues with them over the middle of the field, getting off the field on third downs. It felt like Mercer was just getting open and getting the ball to those guys rather easily, especially in that first handful of drives in this game. And look, that's not a surprise, man. Like, that's what Auburn struggled with against Baylor back in week 1. They've struggled with it at times throughout SEC play. Obviously, Vandy last week. And yes, Auburn's done a really good job of holding teams off the scoreboard, and that scoring defense stat is very important, right? It's what makes this offense. It's what makes this defense a good, not great defense. It's like, they've gotten average results in terms of yardage, especially the passing defense is not where it's towards the bottom of the SEC, towards the bottom of power conference teams. But if you can get stops and you can stop the run, you're fine, especially if you play with a competent offense. Well, you didn't play with a competent offense for most of the year. Now you're in this position. But now Auburn's got a competent-looking offense. They came up short against Vandy. A lot of it was because their defense couldn't get off the field, couldn't make the stops they needed to. In this game, they got off to another rough start there. And it's something for Auburn that they have got to figure out how to tighten up on that, because you can't afford a slow start against Alabama. Because here's what Alabama is going to do. They're going to throw the ball, and 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 they're going to try to light it up, right? Not just because you're Auburn, not just because it's the Iron Bowl, not because it's in Jordan-Hare Stadium. They're trying to get into a playoff. If they have an opportunity to get style points, they will absolutely take it. And so Auburn has got to find a way to avoid another start like this. They said after the Vanderbilt game, what hurt Auburn in that one? Eyes weren't in the right place, weren't playing with the right technique, weren't playing with the right level of energy. They beat you. You weren't playing to your standard. What was the problem for Auburn's defense in the first half against Mercer? All of those same things. Doing that for any extended stretch of game against the Iron Bowl will get you beat. And it will be a big missed opportunity, because I think a Jordan-Hare Iron Bowl at night, especially with Auburn starting to cook on offense these last couple weeks, they are going to be in a position to play a very competitive game. The line is like tiny, right? Like the spread is like less than a touchdown, I believe, or around that. And that's because that's a testament to the fact that Auburn keeps losing these close games, and now they have an offense that looks like they can produce. So the defense has got to hold up their end of the bargain. They've done so much this season to get Auburn to this point, but they cannot afford to take a step back here. And it is concerning. Like Mercer scored 17 points in their first 4 drives of the game. That's the most points they had ever scored on an FBS team in a game. And yes, Auburn locks down in the second half. And by the end of the game, look, forced two picks. Elijah Melendez has a great pick 6. Caleb Harris could have called pick 6 or called fair catch on his pick there late in the second quarter. Mercer finishes the game with just average EPA per drop back, average yards per drop back. Those were solid numbers, but that start is not where you want to be against an FCS team. Even an FCS team that is playing with as much confidence as Mercer is. You have more talent than them. You showed that in the second half. You didn't in the first half.
As we record this on Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, if you shop around, depending on where you're betting, Auburn is anywhere from a 3.5-point underdog to a 6.5-point underdog, depending on the number. But it's under a touchdown pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and so if they're going to have a chance to pull off that upset, they've got to tighten up in the middle of the field. These are PFF numbers. You don't take them as gospel truth, obviously, but you look at the coverage in this game. Linebackers and safeties just got beat consistently in this game. And Kay and Lee had a couple those early drives. They were going after Kay and Lee a little bit, not as much with Jay Crawford. But I think one of the issues that I've had with this defense this season, I think has been a problem, is Dan, outside of maybe Jay Crawford, what returning Auburn DB you feel like is taking a step forward this season?
No, coverage has been, we were talking about coverage issues.
Your best impact, especially at safety, has been from freshmen.
We were talking about coverage issues after Baylor, right? And it's 11 games later, you're still not sure what's going to happen when Auburn's defense faces a quarterback that can throw the football a lot and some receivers that can get open, and that's an apt description of Alabama, right? So you have to be.
They've given up again. We can play the, but they won, and then all that. They've given up an even 600 passing yards over the last 2 weeks, and that's not where you want to be against team. And look, Vanderbilt's awesome. Did you see Pavia's line last night against Kentucky?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and Mercer's a really good passing attack in FCS, especially by FCS standards. But that's not the momentum you want to have heading into the Iron Bowl. The good news is, though, Dan, in the second half, they shut down. Mercer did not get a whole lot going through the air in that, and they tightened up. They started rotating some more guys into the game, and they were able to calm it down, and just Auburn killed them off. But yeah, you don't. This was a good opportunity. Well, easier said than done, obviously, but this would have been a good opportunity for Auburn's defense to come out there, either pitch a shutout early or get off to a really, really good start and just kind of lean on it and say, you know what, this defense is going to bounce back. And they eventually did, but that first half is going to give some people some pause for concern, especially with Alabama coming up next.
You mentioned, for my third point, you already mentioned the touchdown to Cam Coleman. This is a point about the Mercer game. It's a point about the Iron Bowl. It's a point about next season for Auburn football. It's Cam Coleman is something really, really special, and it's something that you just don't. It's lightning in a bottle. I don't know the next time we'll be talking about an Auburn receiver with the kind of superlatives that we use to talk about Cam Coleman, and I really hope this isn't his last season at Auburn. I really hope that you can find a way somehow to make the case, regardless of who the coach is next year. This isn't a point about Auburn's coaching search. No matter who Auburn's head coach is, it could be you, Justin Ferguson. If
probably shouldn't be.
Well, but if it is, you need to have a plan to keep Cam Coleman in an Auburn uniform.
Yep.
Right? And that's something just, you cannot let that slip through your fingers.
Yeah, it is going to be an obvious priority for whoever the next head coach is. He is a very, very special talent. I thought in this game as well, you get Malcolm Simmons getting more into. That's a one-on-one. I'm going to run past you. 91-yard pass. Another thing that Deuce did in this game that in the record book, tied for the third longest pass in Auburn history. Bo Nix had one as well, first freshman to ever do it. this was a game where Auburn's receiver, like, again, you see where the vision was with Hugh Freeze. Hey, if we get all this talent at quarterback and wide receiver, it could work. Yep. You just didn't do it. Like, you didn't put those guys in the right position. And look, Cam had a couple drops in this game. But I mean, the touchdown he had is as good as you're going to get. And it was coming off that Vandy game. He's a very special player and a very special talent. And like you said, Dan, like, if you're Auburn, you're going to try whatever it takes to make sure his third season and final season of college football is going to be played at Auburn. But that's a guy that you feel like in an offense that is getting competent quarterback play and competent strategic mindset behind it. Look at what he did against Vandy. Look what he did against Mercer. He wasn't doing that all year long. That's something that's like it's a weapon. It's a weapon. And like, I wasn't going to get into like coaching search stuff right here, but like let's a little sidebar here off of this. I think Cam's a great example. Malcolm Simmons, some of those young defensive players that are playing out there, like Xavier Atkins, Morris Williams, guys like that, all throughout the roster. We have said, no matter who Auburn hires as your head coach next season, Auburn's not going to have an empty cupboard on the roster, right? Auburn still had Gus Malzahn players playing on this team, right? So, like, you're in a situation where the next guy who's going to be the head coach at Auburn is going to be in a situation where you're going to have a shot to compete right away because the setup here is good.
I mean, there's the potential for an exodus because that sometimes happens when a coaching change
Auburn's
occurs.
Going to lose guys. Auburn's going to lose talented guys. They're not going to lose all of them.
Yeah, and part of that to me is, like, I don't know how many of the guys on the team right now are on the team solely because of Hugh Freeze, right? Like, you're talking about, like, there are a lot of other factors that led to them making the decision, and a lot of those factors are still in place, right? Auburn's positioning in the NIL space, the things about the university or the program that made it.
How about the fact that it was almost a full stadium for a 4-6 team against an FCS team on a Saturday afternoon?
The fan support. I mean, there's other important factors.
Hugh Freeze deserves credit for
yes,
recruiting and raising the talent level.
But that's a different point than, like, giving Hugh Freeze credit for building the roster is different than thinking, well, when you pull Hugh Freeze away, everything falls apart.
Correct. Yes, correct. Like, I think that's an important distinction to make. They're going to have priorities to kind of keep guys around. And we, heard earlier this week, or I guess last week, John Coleman has come out and talked about retaining DJ Durkin on Auburn's staff, even if he's not the head coach, because they want to keep a lot in place. And look, Cam Coleman's not a defensive player. Those offensive guys, those receivers aren't defensive guys, obviously, under Durkin. But I do think at a time, Dan, when you could have just packed it up, hey, you fired your head coach and it is over. Look at Florida.
Oh, yeah. You're seeing
smoked.
Yeah.
Did you see the LSU game last night?
LSU has to fight back to beat Big Red.
Yeah, a disastrous game. That Auburn's not doing that. They're continuing to swing, and that's why people are going to give them a puncher's chance in the Iron Bowl next week. The setup is there. The build is there, and I think Cam Coleman's a great example of that. You're not going to be able to keep all of it, but this was what makes this an attractive job, right? When John Cohen comes out and says, we think we have the best job available. When John Cohen comes out and says, we have plenty of sitting head coaches that are interested in this job. Yes, Auburn's going to have to win next week in the Iron Bowl to avoid a fifth straight losing season. 5 years of 6 or more losses had never happened before until now. This is the bottom of the program in the modern era for sure. And yet, this is an attractive place to be because they have the pieces. Just because the last guy could not get that to work on the field doesn't mean Auburn is broken beyond repair. They've got things they've got to fix. They've got issues they have to sort out for sure. And there will be changes and growing pains and transitions aplenty with the next head coach. But, like, you saw it again on Saturday with a number of these guys. Cam, Malcolm Simmons, some of those defense players, Deuce being a huge part of that as well. It's like, if you can keep some of this in place, this is why you leave good situations to come to a place like Auburn. Because guess what? The people Auburn has been connected to in this coaching search are guys who are in good situations right now. And it would take a lot. It's kind of like the whole thing with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin right now. It's like, why would you leave the situation you're in right now? Well, you think there's even a higher ceiling. There's more potential at wherever that is, whether it's LSU or Florida. Most likely LSU at this point. Auburn, not in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes, but doing a lot of the same stuff right now. And I think that's very telling for this program. Very, very telling. All right. I wrote about this. Number 4 point. I wrote about this in the observations on Sunday morning. So I'll rehash them here, a couple of them here in case you haven't read it yet. But first off, like mini one, good for Alex McPherson he looks back, and that could be a huge thing next week against Alabama, because guess what Alabama's dealing with right now? An inconsistent kicking game. We've seen that one before. We've heard that one before, especially in a home Iron Bowl. Let's keep that in mind. There are a couple things, though, that I thought were causes for concern. Maybe a few things that were causes for concern coming out of this game heading into that Iron Bowl. Number one, you hope Keldric Faulk's ready to go next week. That's as big of a loss as you could possibly have if he is. Now, he leaves the game early. He stays on the sideline. He's walking around, but he comes out of his pass. Maybe it's a precautionary thing. They didn't have any update after the game. He was able to walk off the field on his own power. I would think unless Keldric Faulk's legs falling off, he's going to play in that Iron Bowl. This dude goes through – how about this? How many times have you ever seen a true junior go through senior day? Because everyone in the building knows the deal with him.
I don't think he's coming back, guys. I just got this – I got this weird feeling that, we've been saying since Keldric committed to Auburn, like, enjoy this while you can. Like, enjoy seeing 15 in a football uniform playing for your college for, savor it, because it, pretty soon he's going to have the opportunity to step up and move to the NFL.
It's remarkable how he could be a 3-and-out guy with Auburn struggling like it has on the field. And I'm not saying that to depress any Auburn fans, but it's like, I also just a testament to this dude's talent. Like, he's just different. If you don't have him in the Iron Bowl, things change drastically for your defense, because he is such an effective pass rusher. He's an elite run stopper. Things change. Offenses have to change and adapt based on the fact that 15's on the field. And so that's something you got to keep an eye on. You got to keep in mind. Sylvester Smith getting knocked out in the first half for the Iron Bowl with targeting, that hurts. That hurts.
You're already thin, right? Without
you're
Champ.
already thin and ineffective right now at safety, and like you can say like, oh well, how much is it going to hurt you if a guy who hasn't been playing very well for most of the season at safety, if you're missing that, well, there's a reason why that guy keeps playing and getting those. And
now his backups are out there.
Ah, exactly.
Right? Like you can cite that the season hasn't necessarily gone.
Might have to get creative. Might have to throw more corners on the field to compensate. But that is something it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the pass defense. You have to find a way to avoid that slow start again, because Alabama will pick on it and adjust and adapt, and like it's going to be tough. The other one that really got me in this game, looking back, is outside of the quarterbacks, Auburn could not run the ball at all against Mercer. 18 carries for 67 yards for Jeremiah Cobb and Justin Jones. Cobb looked hurt. That was something I got from several people tweeting at me about it, messaging me about it during the game. I could kind of tell he just didn't look the same.
You saw Justin Jones out there real early, and I thought maybe some of that was senior day. But
I think also maybe pass pro. Like I think that's why we didn't see Omar Mabson.
But the more
because you were gonna need a good pass protector next to Deuce in this situation as a freshman.
The more he's out there, you're thinking how much of this is about Jeremiah Cobb. Are you trying to save Cobb for the Iron Bowl, or is it is there something more pressing, more urgent wrong? And yeah, I also had some.
Cobb played 39 snaps and Jones played 18.
Yeah, and I had some folks. I also had folks asking me like, is Cobb 100%? Because it didn't seem to be the usual sort of effortless burst that you've seen from him all season long.
And Mercer's got a really good run defense by FCS standards, but you are much bigger than him up front. And I thought Auburn's offensive line. There's the second drive of the game for Auburn where it's 3rd and short, and they get walloped in the backfield for tackle for loss, and they have to punt. Game on paper has this. These are not good numbers here for Auburn. 21% of Auburn's runs went for 0 or fewer yards. 31% went for 2 or fewer yards in this game. They didn't really. They had one 3rd and short run that they were able to convert. The other one got blown up in the backfield. It's not where you want to be at this point, because I think Auburn's running game could be a real weapon for them against Alabama. Keep the offense off the field. Keep Bama's offense. Keep the offense on the field. Keep Bama's offense off the field. I should say. Control time of possession. Like, those are all good things. But if you can't run the ball with your backs against Mercer, what are you going to do against Alabama in a week? That's a really, really big question, because Alabama, solid run defense, not an elite run defense by any means, but they gave up a good bit of yardage to Ahmad Hardy in that Missouri game, and since then, 4.3 yards a carry against Tennessee, 3 against South Carolina, 2.2 against LSU, 2.6 against Oklahoma, and then barely any yesterday against Eastern Illinois. So, like, that run defense has tightened up for Alabama. And so, yes, having your quarterbacks be able to run the ball effectively is huge, but if you can't consistently get what you want on the ground, handing the ball off against an FCS team, that's not where you want to be as an offensive front. It's not where you want to be as a running game. Even if Cobb's banged up and Darrell Robinson might not be ready, you don't want to go to Mabson as much in that game, for whatever reason there. Just not the sign you want to see from your running game heading into Alabama. That's something I gotta keep an eye on. That's an area that's going to have to bounce back like the pass defense pretty quickly. All right. Anything else we want to add from that one?
It was cool to see some of the previous teams. Like, you can feel however you want about retroactively claiming national championships in college football. Very cool for the members of those teams to get their moment, and to see what Terry Bowden in the house with the banner. Bumped into Ben Grubbs while I was walking to the press box. He was there as part of the 2004 team, honoring that national championship that Auburn is claiming, and so yeah, it was really cool to see some of the guys that put in the work to make those seasons special, getting to get back out there on the field and have their time in the sun.
And I would also say even more so the Brian Battie moment.
Yes,
that is about as emotional I can remember being in the press box. I mean, to think about 18 months ago, people didn't know if he was going to make it from the shooting that in May of 2024. To see him walk, to see him accept that ball on senior day, I mean, that's something that is just really, 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 really gets at you. It's good to see Brian. I mean, it continues to be. I mean, let's call it what it is, man. It continues to be a miracle that guy's alive, but not only alive, but walking and going to have as close to a normal life as he can after what happened to him is remarkable. And you know what? Props to Auburn for bringing him back. He was at the Iron Bowl last year in Tuscaloosa. Made the trip to that one, but really cool to see him get those flowers on senior day. Really, really cool moment, and a part of what I thought just overall was just a very good vibes day for Auburn football. And look, man, like I said, there's not a whole lot you can do in that game to make you say, okay, this changes so much about the Iron Bowl next Saturday. But you'd rather be coming off of a big blowout 3-phase win than the alternative. So good for Auburn on that one. All right, hoops. So basketball. We are going to talk Auburn, Oregon, and we'll talk a little Auburn, Michigan as well. Players Era Festival coming up. This tournament, really quick, before we dive in, this tournament is wild of a setup. I got an email Saturday night, kind of like with the media stuff from it, and then I saw the tiebreaker criteria, like how this tournament is set up, because it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
It's an 18-team field, right?
It's an 18-team field. Everybody's got 2 set games they were already playing, right? Okay, and then what happens from there? After day 2, this is from Players Era, all 18 teams will be ranked 1 through 18 based on the following criteria: record, and then they'll separate those by head-to-head, and then a plus-minus tiebreaker with a max of 20 on that. Then it's points scored, then it's points allowed, and then if they're somehow tied after all of that, it'll be poll ranking off of that, but they're probably not going to be able to go that deep. And then what happens is the top 4 teams are separated off, and you have a championship game and a third-place game off of that. So what you do in your first 2 games can get you in the championship game or the third-place game. Everybody else will play the final games. There's a chance you can play on Thursday, but you have to be kind of the very bottom of it, of the tournament. I think UNLV is like guaranteed to play in one of those unless they're in the top 4. And they're going to they said they're going to try to avoid matchups for later in the year, or conference things if they can. But here's the fun part. If such a matchup has to happen in the championship game or the third place game, they're going to do it because, as they said, this is an NIL tournament. And so, like, look, if Auburn had to play Houston again, Auburn had to play Purdue before. Is Purdue's in this field? Or,
I think that's right.
Yeah. If any of that happens, no, Purdue's not in this field. It's Houston, Bama. I was looking at the ones that Auburn could end up playing. Tennessee. Yeah. So it's like, if Auburn had to play Houston again, just because that's how the matchup shook out, that's had to. If Auburn had to play, how about this? If Auburn had to play Alabama or Tennessee in a game that's not a conference game.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that you could have, and I know those possibilities are there when multiple teams from a conference are in one of these, November tournaments. But yeah, the thought that Auburn could see like an SEC team this week is
like Alabama
is
could
crazy.
play St. John's again. Yeah, so it's pretty funny stuff. From the players there, but that's kind of how it shakes out. Auburn, Oregon on Monday night, Michigan on Tuesday night. What they do in those 2 games will determine what they end up doing on Wednesday or potentially Thursday if things go wrong. I think you would have to lose both of your games and then be towards the bottom of your point differential if that happens. So, we will see. Most likely Auburn's going to be playing on Wednesday. And in that third game, and we will see who that ends up. Remember, Players Era Festival, why this thing is blown up, and they want to make this thing huge. They want to get to like 32 teams in the future. Why this thing's so huge, and Auburn's committed to playing this for the next 3 years, is this is for NIL. Auburn played in the last good Maui Invitational field potentially ever, the best one ever, potentially the last elite one. A lot of these other MTEs, the multi-team events, are not hanging around with the quality of the field because teams are signing up for Players Era because if you win it, you get and that money goes directly to the players. And it's a concept that, now that NIL and all this is a thing that you can go do, more and more premier college basketball teams are going to want to do stuff like this. And so Auburn has their spot locked in for the next 3 years. It's just this thing's going to evolve and grow. We're going to do a lot of learning on the fly with it.
Yeah, the Auburn, Oregon, 7:00 Central in Las Vegas at it's Mandalay Bay. They call it Michelob Ultra.
Michelob Ultra Arena's at Mandalay Bay, and the other one's at
MGM Grand.
MGM Grand,
and so Auburn, Oregon is going to be on. It's on True TV. They're going to preempt the Practical Jokers to show some college basketball.
Reruns of what was the
Bones?
Bones.
Yeah, they're going to have some Bones reruns. Auburn's opponent on Tuesday, Michigan, is playing right after Auburn at Mandalay Bay. They've got San Diego State, the team that just dropped a home game to the Troy Trojans last week during Troy's West Coast trip.
So let's get into it. Auburn, Oregon. We'll talk Auburn, Michigan as well. First off, Keyshawn Hall, the Keyshawn Hall of it all, right here. Many of you may have seen online on Saturday. Auburn posted pictures of guys getting on the plane. Keyshawn Hall's on the plane. He's making the trip. He was not wearing a walking boot. Didn't seem to have any sort of support on that ankle, that foot that he obviously sprained a week earlier against Houston. Stephen Perla has maintained they don't have a set timeline for him to return. They're going to work through it with the team medical staff, and when he's ready to come back and they feel like it's a smart move, they're going to go do it. It looks like it's going to be sooner rather than later, though. If this is a guy who is, he was in a walking boot on Wednesday against Jackson State. He's not in there. He's making the trip. I think Auburn, I would make a prediction, and this is no inside info or anything off that. I would make a prediction. I think we see Keyshawn Hall at some point in Vegas. I don't know when, but it seems like it's trending in that direction.
I could see Auburn wanting to be very careful just because you do have conference games coming in a couple of weeks and some big
more than that. They don't have conference games for another month.
Yeah, and some important games coming up in the on the calendar right after Las Vegas. Some big non-conference games right afterward. But
so are these.
Yeah, but you're right. I think it's. I mean, no. If you feel like there's not the risk for re-aggravation or something, for things to get worse.
Yeah.
If he feels okay, like to me, it's
a different thing. It's a different sprain, obviously, and all that. But like I think about how Keyshawn Murphy was able to bounce back, after a week or so from his sprain. It wouldn't be surprised if Keyshawn Hall wouldn't be missing that much more time. Again, my prediction is you'll probably see him at Vegas at some point on the floor. I don't know how much and I don't know when. That's just I think the fact that he's making the trip, I think, is a good sign, and he's making the trip without having to be, on crutches or on a walking boot getting on the plane, I think is also pretty telling.
And this is where Auburn's depth is really comes in handy because without Keyshawn Hall, when you try to prepare for a game like Michigan and you're not sure, or a game like Oregon and you're not sure if Keyshawn Hall is going to be available or not, like you do have other options who have played. It's just everybody's got to everybody's got to check in for a little bit longer. Everybody's got to be able to everybody's got to be ready to contribute a little bit more than you have to with a healthy Keyshawn Hall available. I don't know if it necessarily falls to it's all on this one guy to step up more without Keyshawn Hall. I think it's everybody else has to be ready to shoulder a little bit more of the load.
Sebastian Williams-Adams would probably get the most of it, but again, you'll see more front court guys because of it, and you'll see more backcourt guys because of it as well. Like you're going to need. We talked about it after the Jackson State game with Simon Walker having his breakout, with Abdul Bashir trying to find his groove. Blake Mashalik's in that ballpark as well, and then obviously Philip Jovic and Emeka Porum up front. When you lose a guy like that, so many other dudes are going to have to step up to kind of fill in, and they did that against Jackson State. Oregon's a different animal there. The good news though is Auburn was able to keep those guys. No Hall in this game against Jackson State, and then as we talked about the other day, 22 minutes, 24 minutes, the max for any of those guys. They did not have to lean on them as hard in that Jackson State game. So they're going to be able to be pretty fresh for 3 games in 3 days, which is the ultimate test of you don't do this again until you get to conference tournament time. Like this, that's the only other time you have to do this. But that's why you do play in these things, is that you can get prepped so that when you're in the most important time of the year in the postseason, it's playing games back to back to back isn't a strain on you. or in the case of the tournament, you play 2 in 3 days. So, like, that's something that I think Auburn's going to be really well prepared for. Let's talk Oregon. Dana Altman has been doing this for a very, very long time. And if you know anything about Oregon basketball, and if you know anything about Oregon basketball these last few years, the following sentence is not going to surprise you at all. These dudes are tall. Mm-hmm. 13th tallest team in college basketball by average height. It goes back to Nate Biddle is their key guy, 7-footer, who is in his 5th season with the Ducks. Nate Biddle was a guy that I don't know if people expected him to be at Oregon for 5 years, but he is a former McDonald's All-American, a 5-star, a 7-footer that just does so much for that team. Currently averaging 18.8 points a game, 9.8 rebounds per game, 3 blocks per game. He gets to the free throw line a ton. He leads the Big Ten in blocks. He went through the NBA draft process and decided to come back, but 25 points, 8 and 6 against Rice, 24-7 and 7, hit both of his threes against Oregon State. His other 2 games were double-doubles this season. It all goes back to him. He is an ultimate test because, as Stephen Pearl said, before they left for Vegas, this is a 7-footer that plays like a guard and does all the 7-footer stuff. But and then by the way, he is very comfortable taking those shots. Gets to the free throw line. He's an all-around center. Does everything really, really well. And when he got to Oregon, he was 215 pounds. He's up to 250. So he's got that bulk. And he shoots really well, from the perimeter. I think that's something that he's priority number 1 in this game. Very interested, Dan, in seeing the matchup here. Auburn can't rely on this guy alone, who I'm about to talk about, to carry that load by himself. But the Keyshawn Murphy versus Nate Biddle matchup is going to be a lot of fun to watch because, as we were talking about from the Jackson State game, one of the things that Murph has done really well, especially in that last game, and you've seen it as he's gotten healthier and healthier, he's a big man who can get out on the perimeter. And so you have to have that when you're playing a guy like Nate Biddle in this matchup. Really, really big time. Like that is a really fun. I wish we could have seen Nate Biddle and Janai Broome go up against each other just because of how valuable they were to both their teams, those all-around games at center. But I think Murph versus Biddle is going to be a lot of fun.
And with Auburn, I feel like Auburn has seen some size this year, but it's a different sort of animal when you're talking about Oregon, and I wonder if that impacts. Some of the things that you're usually worried about when you're facing a team that is long and active defensively. Like Auburn's going to have to work harder for good shots. Right, like you can't settle, you can't play into Oregon's hands, and that's something that
they're really good on defense.
Yeah, that's something where I think it's going to be, especially early. I won't be shocked if it's kind of an adjustment for Auburn to try to figure out exactly how to attack Oregon, or we're going to see Auburn have a decided speed advantage out there, and that could shake things up too. But just when you're talking about a team with Oregon's proportions, it's going to be. It's going to be imperative that you take care of the basketball without it getting rejected because you're not getting it over their hands.
Another guy Auburn's familiar with from recruiting, who's another huge piece of this team, is Kwame Evans Jr., 6'10" forward, played at Montverde. Auburn recruited him. He was like. Montverde's had so many of like the elite big men in basketball over the last several years. He was a McDonald's All-American, elite recruit. He's averaging 10 and 7 right now. The last time out, he had 16 and 14 against Oregon State. You'll hear this a lot. Another big guy that can play like a guard at 6'10", 220. Hit a few threes already this season. Nate Biddle, by the way, shooting 38% from deep. And then in the backcourt, they have Jackson Shelstad, who was third-team All-Big Ten last year, preseason All-Big Ten. Another guy who was a elite recruit in the Pacific Northwest. He's been there for a while. He has he's averaging 10 three-pointer attempts per game. He had 22 against South Dakota State and Oregon State. He missed the opener because he had a broken hand in the preseason. That'll be something to keep an eye on. But I mean, last year he hit game winner after game winner after game winner. He was as clutch of a guard as you're going to find anywhere in the country. Just a very special type of guard that they lean on heavily. And if I remember correctly, it was the other guard. He had a big shot. It was Bartholomew. But he had a big shot late. He had a big drive and score late against Alabama last year when they played him in Players Era, because I remember watching that game. So that's another key guy to look at. I mean, TK Simpkins played at Elon. His freshman season, Dan, was at Northwest Florida State.
That's right. Go Raiders.
So TK Simpkins was one of the top CAA players last season. He's originally from Brooklyn. We're
all over the Big Ten. We
Yeah.
got TK. We got Chad at USC.
Good downhill driver. Is probably a better three-point shooter than his numbers have been so far this season. But he'll be a guy to keep an eye on. I mean, they've got this is a team that, as Stephen Pearl said on Friday, you look at their roster and you say, man, these guys are so stinking talented. Like, there's so many dudes that Dana's got on this team that were ex-elite, like McDonald's All-American recruits. He's got a mix of experience, and they're just tall as heck. The one thing about Oregon I think is really interesting in this one, their defense has carried them so far this season. They had to beat Hawaii by 1 to open the year, beat Rice by 4 at home. They bounced back with better double-digit wins over South Dakota State and Oregon State, which are pretty good teams, for their respective mid-majors. They're still trying to find their shot right now. Biddle's been hitting them, but it's kind of it. 258th in effective field goal percentage so far this season. They're turning the ball over at a higher clip this year. Their threes aren't falling as a whole. They're getting to the free throw line, but not necessarily converting. They're going to want to play a grinded-out kind of defensive game against Auburn. They take a lot of threes. They're just not hitting a lot of them. The one thing I see about this defense for Auburn, and it's something they had to work on, Houston's gotten them with it. Bethune-Cookman definitely got them with it earlier this season. That size for Oregon and the perimeter play that they've got, those guys can go downhill and create face-up. There's going to be a tendency or an urge for Auburn's defenders to probably sink in too much and helping out their guys and fading off shooters. You got to know your matchups. You got to know your scouting report. If you give Oregon catch and shoot opportunities, they're going to shoot them. They haven't hit them so far this season, but it might be the fact that they might be due for that. So really interested to see how Auburn's defense handles this Oregon offense. What does Auburn do to make sure that, the size doesn't really beat them too much, but also they're not giving up threes to a team that just is very comfortable shooting threes if they have to. They just feel like if they're good looks, they're going to eventually start going down for them. That's going to be the big thing for me.
You mentioned Keyshawn Hall. I mean, with Keyshawn Hall available, Auburn's it changes the equation a little bit. I still think that there's this is a big week for Todd. This is a chance against a couple of very talented teams. This is a chance for Todd to smooth things out and to Auburn's going to need Todd to play well to beat either of these teams. It feels like if you're a rough game at the point guard position is going to be a lot to overcome if you're trying to beat Oregon or Michigan. Mm-hmm. I know Todd's I think folks are more worried about the shooting percentages than anything else so far.
It's a slow start. It's a frustrating start, but Dan, have you watched Todd play this season and think he's forcing bad shots?
No, and you're not necessarily. I mean, I think that if he didn't have all those other responsibilities too with the offense, if Todd was just like an off-ball scorer, and he had those numbers, it'd be maybe greater cause for concern. Mm-hmm. But when, yes, the shooting numbers probably need to go up.
Oh yeah,
but he's also able to impact the game in a lot of different ways when he's not scoring.
I think his point guard play has gotten better, like running the show on offense. I think, and the proof is in the fact that Auburn is putting up some big time numbers on offense to start the year. And I think he's gotten better as a defender as well. I think he is taking a step forward as a PG1 on both ends of the floor. He's just got to hit shots. Dan, would it surprise me if he went to Vegas and started hitting shots? No, because what is Tahad Pettiford at the end of the day? The big game hunter. And he's not knocking down shots in these quad 3, quad 4 games to start the season. Obviously, Houston was different. He hit shots against Houston. He hadn't in those other games. That's exactly what happened last season. He finds a different level. Obviously, you want to be able to score any time out. But if you have to go one or the other, you don't want to be the guy who's just a flamethrower against bad teams, but comes up empty against good teams. You want it to be the other way around. He's going to have to hit some shots against Oregon, and going to have to hit some shots against Michigan as well. But yeah, I think that's a really, really big. It's a really, really big weight on him heading into this game. If Auburn wants to go to Vegas and pick up some quality wins for their resume, and make noise out there and prove that this is a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with over the course of this season in college basketball, the point guard's going to have to step up. And I'm not one of those guys that has to think that, there's a thought that I've heard people say, he needs to be the best player on the floor every time out. I don't think he has to on this team. I think there's enough talent to go around and you can make it work. He's just got to do his role really, really well. And if he's doing that, you can live with the missed shots as much because they haven't hurt Auburn, right? That's the other thing too. Is Tahad Pettiford shooting 19.4% from deep, Dan, and has it really hurt him this season? The one game they lost was the best game he did shooting it. So it's one of those things where I think it has to get better. He needs to get better at knocking those down, but it also hasn't been. I don't think it's a huge cause for concern yet because it hasn't killed Auburn. It hasn't hurt. It's prevented them from beating these teams by even more or maybe averaging closer to 100 points in those games. So I think that's a big thing. Michigan. Let's look ahead to Michigan. They played San Diego State, like you said, in their opener. This Michigan team scored 121 against Oakland to start the year. Beat Wake Forest in overtime in Detroit. Went on the road to beat TCU by 4, and then they just beat Middle Tennessee by 25. So they've had some closer calls with some tougher teams this season. They've taken care of business elsewhere. Look, man, it's a Dusty May basketball team. We saw them in the Sweet 16 last season. There's new faces and new pieces, but what are you going to get from a Dusty May team? They're going to run excellent stuff on the offensive end of the floor, and they're going to be tall as heck as well. They are 28th in average height. So, Auburn can't really necessarily think that they get a reprieve from the big men once they move on from Oregon. Rebounding is going to be huge in that Oregon game. Obviously, it's going to be even bigger against Michigan. Michigan's one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Their defense has been lights out to start the year, and they're shooting well from 2, playing fast, and getting sharing the ball and getting off the backboard and putting it back in. Their offense could use a little bit more efficiency, especially with their jumpers. But if they're playing good defense like they have been and rebounding the ball well, they're gonna be a nightmare against anybody.
With the Keyshawn Hall question mark, what do you think? I mean, I don't know how different the plan is in the front court in either game, right?
No.
It feels like Auburn's gonna.
You're gonna need Murph and Sway to carry a lot of load. You're gonna need Jovic to step up. And he had a good game last time out against Jackson State. He's just got to do it against better competition, and then Emeka Borum as well. And look, I see rebounding, I see length, I see height from these coverage teams. Elijah Freeman can be an X factor because he's not as tall as some of these guys, but he's got the athleticism and he's got the length to make that happen. And he's been a really special player for them to start the year.
Just another big test for. That this week is if Auburn had not played Houston, then it would be. It'd be a total unknown, right? Mm-hmm. As far as what Auburn is capable of against some teams, but seeing Auburn against Houston and seeing them play Houston down to the wire, right? I mean, with the ball down 1 in the final minute, like, yeah, I want to see if Auburn can get over the top and actually win one of these games against. I mean, Oregon isn't in the top 25. They probably should be.
They're close.
They're close. And then Michigan is a lot of folks. A lot of folks think this is a Michigan team that can make a very deep tournament run.
Yeah.
So for Auburn,
they could be even better than the team last season. And that team last season obviously was excellent.
For Auburn to win either of these games, I think for a new look roster and a roster that's still looking for that first signature win of 25-26, I think you have the chance of picking it up in Las Vegas. And then, as you mentioned, then there's no telling who could be on the schedule after Michigan. Depending on how this thing shakes out, you could have another really high quality opponent on the docket before you leave the desert.
All right, just go over real quick some personnel stuff for Michigan. It's our old pal Yaxel Lindenberg, who was the elite star player for UAB. He goes into the portal, and in the NBA draft process, he decides to stay in college, and he's at Michigan. Slower start to the season for him. He had 12-4 in the opener, 9-5 in the second game against Wake Forest, but then much better game against TCU, 14-10-4, and then against Middle Tennessee, didn't miss a shot from 2, hit a couple 3-pointers, went 25-12 and 3. It's gonna be huge. I mean, he is a modern power forward in every sense of the word. That's a fun Sway Jovic. How you mix that if Keyshawn Hall's back for the Michigan game. That's an interesting matchup as well, because you're going to get everything you want out of that dude. And he's come on pretty strongly after a slow start. Roddy Gale's back for another year. He's coming off the bench hitting shots for that Michigan team. Auburn saw him last season. Morez Johnson transferred from Illinois, 6'9", center, so the Illinois to Michigan transfer. He has started every game for them this year and has been a very, very strong rebounder and a very good finisher around 2. Good free throw shooter as well for a big man. So keep an eye on him. Old friend again, Elliot Cadeau, who Auburn saw against North Carolina last season. We all know the story with him. Him and Tahad Pettiford were close growing up, both being New Jersey guys, New Jersey point guards. Cadeau had 14 assists in the opener against Oakland. Had 7 against Wake Forest, but he also had 5 turnovers. The assist turnover ratio hadn't been great for him. He was 1 assist and 6 turnovers against TCU, and then 1 and 2 against Middle Tennessee State. His shot's not really falling as much to start the year, so I'm interested to see Cadeau. Auburn handled Cadeau really well in that Carolina game in Maui last year, so they're familiar with him. Obviously, Tahad's very familiar with him. Be interested to see how they do that again. Obviously, new defense for Auburn, new defensive personnel, new weapons around him. But yeah, no Trey Donaldson anymore at Michigan at point guard, but instead you get a guy that Auburn's really familiar with, and Elliot Cadeau. Namari Burnett's still there. He's starting every game, continuing to be more of a defensive guy for them for Michigan. If he starts hitting his shots, you feel a lot better about Michigan's offense moving forward. And then finally, Dan, I wanted to talk about what can you tell me about I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Mara. Ade Mara played at UCLA.
Former Bruin, yeah.
Yeah, played at UCLA. He's playing heavy minutes to start the year for them. 7-3. They're bringing a 7-3 guy. He started a few games. He's also coming off the bench. I mean, 12, 13, 6, and 10 rebounds to start the year. He does turn the ball over, but he's automatic around the rim and an excellent shot blocker.
Super tall, like you mentioned, and I think some folks might think like, oh, it's going to be kind of limited to just stuff around the rim. He's a very tall basketball player. Mm-hmm. Like this guy's got
good athlete.
Excellent athlete. I don't know how much he's shooting the three.
I hadn't done a ton of it this year.
I know there was always talk of his long range game developing at UCLA, and I think he's somebody who sees himself as like a really, really tall, complete half court offense type of player. But just, I mean, with his athleticism and his touch around the basket, it's a you gotta put your mouthpiece in, and you gotta be ready for combat if you're gonna face somebody like that. And the fact that he's got some good pieces around him, you can't just spend. I think with UCLA last year, he was he was often the focal point of the defense. You can't just base the defense around stopping him at Michigan this year.
It's going to be a really fun matchup. I mean, I think the personnel for that Michigan team and that Oregon team are fun. I mean, you're measuring up against two of the more talented teams, one of the biggest, longest. Like, these are good matchups to measure yourself against if you're Auburn. Obviously, Houston was a supreme matchup there in terms of talent, and they had the size, obviously, and the physicality. If Auburn can bring what they brought to that Houston game to Oregon and Michigan, they're going to have an opportunity to pick up one or maybe two really high-quality wins that I think could stand the test of time this season. We don't know net yet. We don't know any of that. Wouldn't surprise me, especially on a neutral floor, if Oregon ends up being a quad one game long-term for Auburn. I know Michigan definitely will be in that ballpark, and then you see what you get in that third game. But huge opportunity for Auburn. Like I said, we'll see with Keyshawn Hall. We'll be on Keyshawn Hall watch over there. But if Auburn can bring those, like you said, buckle those chin straps, bring your hard hats for the rebounding and the physicality that you have to bring as a baseline minimum against Oregon and Michigan. You do that with the way Auburn's offense is shooting and running so far. You like their chances in both of these matchups to make some noise. Michigan will be a very, very tough game. Auburn will be favored against that Baylor team, but yeah, I mean, these are two really good opportunities.
The other thing I would point out with Oregon is that last year when times got tough, Shellstad was out there the whole game.
Yes,
so Oregon. I think that's we were talking about with Houston. One of the reasons Auburn needs to play at its pace in the Houston. One of the reasons Auburn needed to play at their pace in the Houston game is because Houston's got a couple of guards that the plan is they're going to play the whole game.
Yeah,
right. Guys like
they don't go deep on their
guys like Uzan and Sharp. They're supposed to be out there the entire game. I think
Michigan will go deep on its bench. Oregon will not as much.
Oregon has a couple of starters. It's like Houston, where Oregon has a couple of starters at guard that the plan is to play them practically the entire time, unless you force the issue, whether it's fouls, whether it's fatigue. I think that's Simpkins and Shellstad would be the two guys where
Shellstad's only been out for 11 minutes of the 3 games he's played in this year.
Yeah.
Biddle plays 78% of the minutes, and Simpkins plays 80% of the minutes. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's going to be something. And Oregon will run. They've got the athletes to go out and run, but can Auburn's depth be a weapon? Especially knowing this is a tone setter.
Mm-hmm.
You maybe would want to have played Oregon on day 2 or day 3, right? But if you can go ahead and establish that you're going to go deeper and start running against those guys, it'd be very interesting to see how Oregon reacts to that. So I think it's going to be a big key.
That's a physical San Diego State team that Michigan has.
Yes.
That's a tough. Tell you what, I would not want to play San Diego State and then turn around and play a game the next day in a tournament situation, which is what Michigan's going to have to do. Michigan's got San Diego State, and then less than 24 hours later, they've got to turn around and play Auburn. And I would just watch. If you get the chance to watch the game.
Do you know who Oregon State plays? Or I'm sorry, you know who San Diego State plays after?
They have Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon.
Yeah. They drew like Auburn's opponents, but in reverse. So by the way, I suppose San Diego State could be one of Auburn's.
Could be day 3.
Maybe the odds-on favorite to play Auburn on Wednesday. But that's is part of that little pod that they're in. But it's if you get the chance to watch Michigan, San Diego State when Oregon is over, just pay attention to that is a
fight.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fight. That's a grueling style of play that San Diego State brings out of you.
And Michigan plays to grind it down, especially with that defense and that height that they've got. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I am so very much looking forward to these next few games. I talked about how great it was to cover Maui last year because it was like a bucket list trip for a basketball fan. This is the new era. This is going to be the new thing moving forward, this Players Era tournament. I'm interested to see how it goes off and what it looks like because Auburn's going to be in it for the next few years.
I think SC is in Maui this year. I watched watched
USC and
Boise, I believe, because it's
Texas Tech the other big one out there.
Maybe. But I watched Troy USC last week. Crazy ending to that game, by the way. We were that game was going on while we were recording the previous episode. That was the game had just tipped off, or it was about to tip off Thursday night while I was in when I was in Kansas City, and they mentioned USC's draw in Maui this week. But it's by the way, Chad playing point guard for Musselman and USC, and
a lot of what they got right now.
Off to a pretty good start.
Yeah. So we shall see how all that shakes out. We will have coverage of everything going on at Players Era this week in Vegas, auburnobserver.com. I'll be out there. We'll do a podcast at some point. Dan and I will bring in the mic, and we will at some point we will preview the Iron Bowl as well.
The post-game press conference on Monday could be like Stephen Pearl is on the Auburn Observer podcast, right? Because I feel like you're going to get to. I would think that you're going to be asking.
I'll be interested to see how many folks are out there covering.
I think you'll get some questions up, I suppose, Monday following Auburn and Oregon.
But yeah, so great time to subscribe if you want everything directly from Vegas. AuburnObserver.com. Sign up there. We had such a blast doing this in Maui last year. The Houston games, stuff like the Houston game this year. And again, we are planning on being at all of them as we have been for the last several seasons for Auburn basketball. Got Tucson next week with Arizona. Got Purdue as well in a few weeks. Got another Atlanta game.
Tell you something. I'm proud to associate with an outlet that takes the like the fact that you, Justin, prioritize being at these games as often as you can. You were at every Auburn men's basketball game last season. The hope is to do that again
and the year
this year.
That.
And you do it without taking sportsbook money, right? I mean, so it's like this thing is funded by listeners and readers.
We don't have any sponsors
like you, and so really want to
I can be on like you like we haven't done an ad read in months because we don't have one anymore, and I prefer it that way. I really do, and I want this thing to be from you guys more than anything else.
The way that like there's now disclaimers that there's no AI. Right in your how about this? Like 0% funded by sports books.
Yes,
right. It's like
0% funded by sports books. We're not even. Here's the thing: we're not even funded by the local restaurants that we talk about.
That's
on
true.
Here. We haven't gotten a dime from them. We haven't even. How about this? We haven't even gotten free food from any of them.
Fuji.
We do this for the love of the game.
Fuji does. I have noticed ever since the Grubservers that Fuji does throw in an extra yum yum sauce.
There you go.
Every now and then when I go to get my food.
Yeah, so you're doing it for the love of the game out here. That's what it's all about. So yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll be back later this week from Vegas. Dan, how often have you been to Vegas? I've only been once.
A couple of times. I went when I lived in California. I went a couple of times because it was an easier trip to make. I loved the Mirage. R.I.P. to my favorite place on the Strip. I was able to go pay my respects a couple of years ago and see it right before it went away. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm going to be at Resorts World for a big chunk of next week. That's where the Troy tournament
saw Katy Perry there
is being held. So I'm going to do a little exploring. Check out Auburn Tuesday and Wednesday, Troy Thursday night and Saturday night, and in the meantime just. Try to stay out of trouble with nearly a full week ahead of me in Las Vegas.
A full week in Las Vegas is I've done it. It is a grind. It is a grind. I hope you. What do you do in Vegas? Like what is a Dan Peck in Vegas adventure look like?
When I have stuff to like, I mean the fact that there's a lot of college basketball sort of around. I've got some time on the schedule where I very specifically like I have to go watch these games and I'm really looking forward to that. Like I love being able to see as much basketball.
There's a ton of basketball going on in Vegas this week.
Yeah, and gonna get to see as much of it. And I believe the email said that you're credentialed for all of it. Like
Correct.
if you're credentialed for one of these games, you can go to all of them. So I'm gonna spend a lot of Tuesday and Wednesday watching basketball, but I might. Might hit the tables. I play a little bit of. What
do you play?
I'm a pretty good blackjack player.
Okay.
I just don't understand what's going on at a craps table.
No idea.
I've tried.
I refuse to learn.
Yeah, I've tried to learn some things. And I just don't get it. Slots aren't really my thing. I know that's maybe I'm not old enough. Like one day that'll become my preferred table game. But yeah, just and it's just a great place to people watch too. You find a spot and just take in the sights and the sounds and the smells. Got a couple menu items I want to cross off. It's crazy. I think I've mentioned this before. Naked City is like it's phenomenal Detroit style pizza. Now it's I know that you wouldn't necessarily think Vegas is like is the hub, but there are some.
Vegas is one of those places though where it's like if you said they have great whatever, I'd be like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have a captive audience. Like it's shooting fish in a barrel.
So I've got some and you know what? If you've made it this far in the podcast and you're like a Vegas regular or you've got a favorite thing in Las Vegas.
I've gotten a couple of wrecks already.
Yeah. We're
gonna be on the strip. And I mean I'm not gonna have a vehicle, but we're gonna be hanging out on the strip. So if you got any shout outs, I'm staying at on the MGM side. So like you're up at Resorts World, more on the north side of the strip. I'm like towards because that's where Auburn's playing.
Yeah, I got a pretty good.
I'm not at Mandalay, but I'm close.
I got a pretty good deal on a room Tuesday night through USAA, and then Wednesday night Troy's putting me up for the rest of the thing. So I'm gonna have some fun.
Are you staying on Tuesday night? Are you one of those guys? I want to see you like at like the.
You want to know what? So I am.
You're at the Excalibur for like $9.
So I had a couple of options, including the Excalibur and New York, and the Planet Hollywood.
New York. You just go on the roller coaster.
I'm staying at the Flamingo.
Hey.
I'm going at the old Mickey Cohen joint. You know what I mean? Like we're it's gonna be it should be a lot of fun. That place has, tell you what, at that Wikipedia page is a wild ride. Like that Wikipedia page is a wild ride. So yeah, looking forward to it. Might have to go visit my pals at In-N-Out Burger.
There's
which
one
is,
on the strip.
There's one right at the ground floor. It's the link. Is they've got a
it's right there by the Guy Fieri restaurant.
Yeah, I think there's
which I've been to.
There's a chance that my post game on Tuesday includes a visit to the In-N-Out.
Yeah, I just hope we survive this week.
Lady Luck.
All bets.
Put it all on 7. Lady Luck. They call her Lady Luck, blowing them down. When she kisses me, I'm in heaven.
Snake eyes.
Snake eyes? Snake eyes?
Oh, no!